The bride took a break from our relationship to go on a tour of Europe with friends from college, so I cancelled the wedding because. Jake sat behind the wheel, gripping it tightly as the highway stretched out ahead. The airport loomed in the distance, and the atmosphere in the car was eerily silent. Emily sat beside him, scrolling through her phone, her engagement ring catching the light every now and then as she moved her hand. It had been a tense few weeks, but Jake hadn't expected the tension to explode into something so unexpected, so cruel. The trip had been brought up casually, almost too casually. Emily had mentioned it over dinner, as if it were just another weekend getaway. "I'm going to Europe for a few weeks with my college friends," she had said, barely looking up from her plate. Jake had paused, fork midair. "Europe? For how long?" "6 weeks. We already booked everything," she had said, brushing off his confusion. That was the first red flag. The second was that she had never once asked for his input, not even a mention of whether he might want to join her for a part of it. And now, here they were, minutes away from the airport, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on Jake like a lead blanket. As he pulled up to the departure curb, Emily finally put her phone down. She turned to him with an expression that was too composed, too rehearsed. "We need to take a break." Jake blinked. "What?" But before he could process, before he could demand an explanation, she was already reaching for her suitcase. "I think it's for the best," she added as she pulled the handle of her bag upright. Her voice was unsettlingly neutral, almost robotic. Jake could feel his pulse hammering in his ears. "A break? We're engaged, Emily. We have a wedding planned. What are you talking about?" She sighed, glancing toward the terminal like she was already somewhere else. "I just need time to think. To figure things out." Jake opened his mouth, but nothing came out. There was a painful tightness in his chest, a feeling like something was unraveling too fast for him to hold on to. His fiancée, the woman he had spent years building a life with, was standing on the curb, about to board a flight across the world, and she had just ended everything with a casual flick of her wrist. And then, before he could even fully register what was happening, she turned and walked away. The moment was surreal. People bustled around them, luggage wheels clattered against the pavement, car doors slammed. Life was moving forward at full speed, and yet Jake was frozen in place, watching Emily disappear into the terminal without so much as a glance back. For a full minute, he just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. His brain refused to accept what had just happened. This had to be a misunderstanding, an overreaction, some kind of temporary thing she would clear up once she landed. In a daze, he pulled out his phone and opened their messages. He hesitated for only a second before typing. "Emily. What the hell was that? Call me." He hit send and stared at the screen, waiting for the little delivered confirmation to appear. It never did. Frowning, he tried again. "Emily, we need to talk. Please don't do this." Still nothing. A cold sense of dread crept up his spine. His fingers moved on instinct, tapping into his contacts and pressing her name. The phone rang once, twice, but then, suddenly, the call ended. No voicemail. No connection. His stomach twisted into knots. She had blocked him. Jake's breath came in short, sharp bursts. His hands shook as he tried her on another app. Nothing. Texts wouldn't send, messages wouldn't go through. It was as if, the moment she walked into that airport, she had erased him from her life. A sickening realization set in. This hadn't been spontaneous. She had planned this. The sudden announcement of the trip, the vague reasoning, the calculated delivery of those 6 brutal words, "We need to take a break," right before vanishing into a crowd where he couldn't reach her. This wasn't a break. This was a premeditated escape. Jake felt his stomach churn as he pulled away from the airport, driving in silence, the engagement ring on his own finger burning like a brand. His thoughts raced. Was there someone else? Had she decided long ago that she wanted out, but couldn't face telling him directly? And if so, why the cruelty? Why the sudden cutoff, the digital exile? The questions pounded against his skull, but there were no answers. Only the empty space in the passenger seat where the love of his life had just been, and the realization that she had left him behind without a second thought. The humiliation hit him in waves. 3 years of engagement, a fully planned wedding, and in the span of a single moment, at the curb of an airport, she had dismantled it all with surgical precision. Not even the decency of a real conversation. No explanation, no closure. Just a casual, calculated departure. Jake clenched his jaw as he pulled onto the freeway, the city lights blurring past. He wasn't just heartbroken. He was furious. But more than that, he was utterly, completely alone. 5 days. That was how long Jake spent staring at his phone, waiting for a message that never came. 5 days of disbelief, of constantly checking his notifications, thinking maybe, just maybe, Emily would reach out. Maybe she would realize how cruel she had been. Maybe she would explain. Maybe this wasn't what it seemed. But those 5 days stretched into an eternity, each hour solidifying the truth. She wasn't coming back. She had left him, discarded him like he was nothing, and worse, she had blocked him from her life completely. On the morning of the 5th day, something inside Jake snapped. He had been sitting at the kitchen table, untouched coffee going cold in front of him, scrolling mindlessly through his old messages with Emily, messages that now read, "This user is unavailable," whenever he tried to respond. That was when the weight of everything crushed him. The wedding, the venue, the catering, the flowers, the invitations, the honeymoon. Everything was still booked, waiting, as if the universe hadn't gotten the memo that it had all been for nothing. As if it were mocking him. His chest burned with anger and humiliation as he grabbed his phone and started making calls. The first was the venue. "Hi, this is Jake. Yeah, I need to cancel my wedding." "No, there won't be a reschedule." Next was the caterer. Then the florist. One by one, he dismantled every piece of the wedding he had spent years planning with Emily. The cake? Cancelled. The dress she had picked out? He didn't even want to think about it. The honeymoon to Santorini? Gone. Each call felt like ripping off a bandage, exposing fresh wounds underneath. But as painful as it was, there was a bitter satisfaction in taking control. If Emily wanted to disappear, then fine. He wouldn't sit around waiting for her like some pathetic fool. By the time the last cancellation was made, Jake leaned back in his chair, exhaling shakily. It was done. There was nothing left of the wedding. But then came the apartment. Emily had been supposed to move in after the wedding. They had spent months picking out furniture together, planning how they would turn his place into their home. Her clothes were already hanging in the closet. Her books sat on the shelves. Her perfume still lingered in the air. Jake stood in the bedroom doorway, staring at it all. The sight of her things, untouched and waiting for someone who had walked away without a second thought, made his stomach churn. She doesn't live here. She never will. That night, he packed every single trace of Emily into boxes. He didn't fold things neatly. He didn't handle anything with care. He shoved clothes, shoes, framed pictures, everything into bags and bins. Every reminder of her erased. And then he did something even pettier. He drove to her old apartment, the one she had given up before moving in with him, and left everything outside the door. No note, no message, just her things, dumped like trash, just as she had done to him. Weeks passed. And still, nothing. Not a single word from Emily. No explanation. No apology. Not even a half-hearted excuse. At first, the silence was unbearable. Jake found himself looking at his phone out of habit, expecting her name to pop up. But eventually that habit died. Because deep down, he knew, she wasn't coming back. And for the first time in years, he was free. The weight of waiting, of wondering, of being tied to a woman who had proven she didn't respect him, was gone. He went back to work, spent time with friends, even started going to the gym again. Something he had neglected while pouring every ounce of himself into a future that had never existed. He told himself he was better off. And he believed it. Until one night, when he least expected it, Emily's name finally appeared on his screen. Not in a text. Not in a call. But in an email. "Jake, we need to talk." Jake's blood turned ice cold as he stared at the message. After all this time, after ghosting him, humiliating him, leaving him to pick up the pieces of the life they had built together, this was how she reached out? No apology. No explanation. Just 5 words, as if she had the right to decide when he was ready to hear her out. His hands shook as he hovered over the email, debating whether to open it or delete it without a second thought. Part of him wanted to ignore her the way she had ignored him. To make her feel as worthless as she had made him feel. But another part of him needed answers. He clicked it open. And what he read made his stomach twist into knots. Jake had convinced himself that Emily was gone for good. He had spent weeks forcing himself to let go, telling himself that he was done, that she was nothing but a ghost from a past life he no longer cared about. He had erased her from his home, from his phone, from his plans. He had stripped her from his world entirely. And yet, one random afternoon, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. He almost ignored it, but something in the back of his mind told him to pick up. He swiped to answer, placing the phone to his ear, already halfway expecting a telemarketer. Instead, a voice he hadn't heard in weeks, one he had trained himself to forget, rang through the speaker, light, casual, as if nothing had happened. "Hey Jake. It's me." For a split second, his brain refused to process it. Emily. She spoke as if she had just stepped out for coffee. As if she hadn't walked out on him, humiliated him, abandoned their life together with a single, careless sentence at the airport. Jake felt his fingers tighten around the phone. He didn't speak. Emily filled the silence effortlessly. So, I land at 6:40 on Friday. You can pick me up, right? I'll text you the details. Jake blinked. Was she serious? She had disappeared for weeks, ignored him completely, blocked him, and now she was calling him from some unknown number, expecting him to pick her up from the airport like her personal chauffeur? Jake let out a slow breath. Then, with a voice so calm it almost didn't sound like his own, he said, "What's that got to do with me?" Silence. For the first time, Emily seemed caught off guard. "Jake, what?" She laughed, as if he was joking. "It's me, Emily. I'm coming home." Home. The word made something snap inside of him. He leaned back in his chair, gripping the phone tighter, his voice unwavering. "You lost the right to call anywhere home with me the second you blocked me and left me to clean up your mess." Another pause. Then, Emily let out an exasperated sigh. "Okay, Jake, I get that you're upset, but can we not do this right now? I just gave you my flight details. Are you picking me up or not?" Jake almost laughed. The audacity. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of this woman. "Emily, we are not together," he said, voice firm, final. "Find your own way home." And then, before she could say another word, he blocked her. Again. This time, though, he felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just relief. But he wasn't done. Emily had been able to run away in silence, to avoid the consequences of her actions, to disappear like their engagement had been nothing. He had let her get away with it. Not anymore. He opened the group chat. The one with their closest friends, their wedding party, even some of her family members. And with zero hesitation, he typed, "Just letting everyone know, the wedding is off. Emily ended things before her trip and blocked me. There's nothing more to say." And then he hit send. Instantly, chaos erupted. Messages flooded in. Confusion. Shock. Demands for an explanation. "Wait, what? Dude, what are you talking about? Emily never said anything? Are you okay? Wait, SHE blocked you? What the hell?" Jake stared at the screen as the reality of the situation hit everyone at once. Emily had vanished so cleanly that no one had even known they had broken up. She had left him to bear the weight of everything, let him suffer through the silence while everyone else still believed the wedding was happening. And now they knew the truth. Jake didn't respond to the messages. He didn't need to. He had said everything he needed to say. This wasn't just about ending things with Emily. This was about making sure she couldn't rewrite the narrative. That she couldn't slink back into their lives like nothing had happened. She had made her choice. And now, so had he. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of Jake's message in the group chat, the floodgates opened. Some people messaged him privately, confused. Others called, demanding answers. But the worst part wasn't the confusion, it was the lies. Emily had wasted no time twisting the story in her favor. By the next day, it was clear she had started playing the victim, painting herself as the poor, overwhelmed bride who had made a mistake and was now being punished by Jake's coldness. Megan, one of Emily's closest friends, was the first to speak up publicly in the group chat. "I really think everyone needs to calm down and stop attacking Emily. She was just stressed about the wedding. Maybe she handled things wrong, but 6 weeks is a long time to hold a grudge. Jake, can't you just talk to her?" Jake read the message twice, stunned by the sheer absurdity of it. Stress? Ghosting your fiancé, blocking him on everything, and disappearing to another continent without a word wasn't stress. It was cruelty. Jake didn't hesitate. He typed his response and sent it immediately. "She ghosted me for 6 weeks. That's not stress, that's disrespect." The chat went silent for a few minutes. Then, a few people started reacting to his message with likes and thumbs-up emojis. Others messaged him privately, telling him they had no idea what Emily had done. But the damage control from Emily's side had only just begun. Soon, the texts and calls from her family started pouring in. First, it was her sister. "Jake, please, can we talk? I know Emily hurt you, but she wasn't thinking straight. She panicked. She's back now, and she wants to make things right." Jake ignored it. Then her cousin tried. "Dude, come on. You two were supposed to get married. Just hear her out. Everyone makes mistakes." Mistakes. Jake clenched his jaw, shaking his head. A mistake was forgetting an anniversary. A mistake was saying something hurtful in an argument. A mistake was not running away to another country and erasing someone from your life like they never existed. Then, the worst of it came. Her parents. Jake hadn't spoken to them since the engagement dinner. They had always liked him, had treated him like part of the family. But now, their messages felt desperate, pleading. "Jake, please, don't throw everything away like this. Emily regrets what she did. We know she hurt you, but don't you still love her? Love. Jake felt something bitter rise in his throat. Love had nothing to do with this. Emily hadn't just hurt him. She had humiliated him. She had let him suffer in silence while she ran off, blocking him like he was some ex she had casually dated for a few months instead of the man she had promised to marry. And now that she was back, now that she had to face the consequences, suddenly she wanted to talk? No. Jake wasn't going to be her safety net. He wasn't going to be the fool who let her walk back in like nothing had happened. He typed one final response to her family. Emily made her choice. Now she can live with it. And then, one by one, he blocked them all. A week passed with silence. After Jake shut down Emily's family and ignored her desperate attempts to get others to vouch for her, he had almost convinced himself that she'd finally gotten the message. Then, one evening, a thick envelope appeared in his mailbox. No return address, but he didn't need one. The second he saw the handwriting, his stomach twisted. Emily. Jake hesitated before opening it, already dreading whatever excuse she had cooked up this time. When he finally unfolded the pages, the first thing that struck him was how long it was. Page after page of neatly written paragraphs, as if this was some heartfelt love letter rather than what it actually was: damage control. She apologized. A lot. She wrote about how sorry she was, how she regretted everything, how she had been overwhelmed by wedding nerves, and had just needed time to breathe. She admitted she had handled things poorly but insisted that she had never meant to hurt him. But buried between the apologies were excuses. Blame. Gaslighting. I was just scared, Jake. You know how big weddings are. Everything felt like too much. I needed space to think, and I panicked. I never wanted to leave you for good. If you had just waited for me to come back, we could have fixed this together. You're the love of my life. I can't believe you would throw everything away over one mistake. I've already booked us couples counseling. Our first session is on Tuesday at 6. We can fix this, Jake. We have to. Jake's eyes locked onto one line near the end that made his stomach drop. By the way, I realized I still have the key to your apartment. I figured I'd just keep it in case we work things out. Jake felt a chill creep down his spine. She still had a key. Not only that, but she had never mentioned it before now. His skin crawled at the thought that Emily could have walked into his place at any time in the last few weeks without him knowing. Had she? Had she been inside while he was at work? Had she stood in the doorway, watching, maybe even considering talking to him, only to leave without a word? It made his blood boil. Emily still didn't get it. She didn't get that this wasn't her decision anymore. She had spent weeks ignoring his existence, blocking him, treating him like a problem she could walk away from until she felt like dealing with it. And now she expected him to sit down in a therapist's office and talk about his feelings? No. Jake grabbed a piece of paper and a pen. He wasn't going to play along with her act. He wasn't going to let her dictate how this went. His response was short, brutal, crystal clear. Emily, we're done. Return the key. Move on. Jake. No explanations. No soft words. No opening for negotiation. He folded the letter, stuffed it into an envelope, and dropped it off at her old apartment. It should have ended there. But it didn't. That was when things started to get creepy. It began subtly. Little things that made Jake second-guess himself. One night, as he was coming home from work, he had the uneasy feeling that someone was watching him. When he turned toward the street, he caught sight of a familiar car parked just across from his building. Emily's car. The moment she saw him looking, she pulled away. No message. No call. Just watching. A few days later, one of his neighbors mentioned seeing a woman standing near his apartment door the previous evening, looking hesitant, like she was deciding whether or not to knock. When Jake asked for a description, his heart sank. It was Emily. Then came the moment that made his blood run cold. His mother called him one evening, her voice tense. Jake, Emily was here. He nearly dropped his phone. What? She just showed up at my house, his mother said, clearly unsettled. She was crying, saying she needed to talk to me, that she just wanted to explain everything. She wouldn't leave. I had to tell her 3 times to go home. Jake felt his hands tremble with rage. Emily had crossed a line. Showing up at his apartment was bad enough. But dragging his mother into this? Unacceptable. That night, Jake changed his lock. He also made one final decision. If Emily didn't stop, he would get a restraining order. For a while, everything was quiet. Emily was finally gone from his life, forced to keep her distance by law. No more calls. No more letters. No more sudden appearances outside his apartment or his mother's house. Jake thought that was the end of it. But he had underestimated just how deep Emily's delusion ran. Because even with a restraining order in place, she wasn't done. The first sign that something was wrong came from one of his friends, Ryan. One night, Ryan texted him out of nowhere. "Dude, what's going on? Emily just sent me a massive message about you." Jake's stomach twisted. What did she say? That you ruined her life. That she made one mistake, and you're punishing her for it. That you've been telling people lies about her and turned everyone against her. Bro, she's acting like you're the villain in some movie. Jake clenched his jaw. He had never spread lies about Emily. He had barely even spoken about her beyond explaining what happened when people asked. But now, she was rewriting history, spinning a story where she was the victim and he was some heartless monster who had overreacted. And Ryan wasn't the only one she reached out to. One by one, his friends started messaging him, asking why Emily was suddenly bombarding them with sob stories, talking about how much she loved him, how she was so scared, and just wanted another chance. She even contacted some of his co-workers. Jake wasn't just angry, he was furious. She had already taken so much from him. His peace, his sense of security. Now she was trying to poison his reputation. He sent one final message to the group chat. "Emily and I are over. That is final. She ghosted me for 6 weeks, blocked me, and only came back when it was convenient for her. Now she's harassing my friends and my coworkers. I'm done. If she messages any of you, ignore her." Most of his friends understood. Some had already blocked her. But Emily wasn't done. The next day, his boss called him into the office. "Jake, do you have any idea why your ex-fiancée sent an email to HR?" Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "What?" "She claimed you have anger issues and that she was concerned for your coworkers' safety." Jake couldn't believe it. She wasn't just harassing his friends anymore, she was trying to ruin his career. His boss didn't take it seriously, of course. Jake had worked at the company for years. Everyone knew him. No one believed Emily's insane accusations. But it didn't matter. She had made her intentions clear. If she couldn't have him, she would destroy him. Jake had been patient. He had been calm. He had taken the high road. Not anymore. He went straight back to the courthouse. This time, he wasn't just asking for a restraining order, he was pressing charges. Harassment. Defamation. Violation of the protective order. Emily had finally pushed too far. The police took it seriously. With the restraining order already in place, and with proof that she had been messaging his friends and contacting his workplace, there was more than enough evidence to take action. Emily was arrested the next morning. Jake didn't go to the hearing. He didn't care. He didn't want to hear her excuses, her fake tears, her never-ending stream of manipulations. But later, when he found out that she had been given probation, a fine, and mandatory therapy, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Closure. It was finally, truly over. Emily was gone. And Jake? Jake walked away from it all, stronger, smarter, wiser. Because now he knew the truth. Some people don't deserve second chances. For a while, everything was quiet. Emily was finally gone from his life, forced to keep her distance by law. No more calls. No more letters. No more sudden appearances outside his apartment or his mother's house. Jake thought that was the end of it. But he had underestimated just how deep Emily's delusion ran. Because even with a restraining order in place, she wasn't done. The first sign that something was wrong came from one of his friends, Ryan. One night, Ryan texted him out of nowhere. "Dude, what's going on? Emily just sent me a massive message about you." Jake's stomach twisted. What did she say? That you ruined her life. That she made one mistake, and you're punishing her for it. That you've been telling people lies about her and turned everyone against her. Bro, she's acting like you're the villain in some movie. Jake clenched his jaw. He had never spread lies about Emily. He had barely even spoken about her beyond explaining what happened when people asked. But now, she was rewriting history, spinning a story where she was the victim and he was some heartless monster who had overreacted. And Ryan wasn't the only one she reached out to. One by one, his friends started messaging him, asking why Emily was suddenly bombarding them with sob stories, talking about how much she loved him, how she was so scared, and just wanted another chance. She even contacted some of his coworkers. Jake wasn't just angry, he was furious. She had already taken so much from him. His peace, his sense of security. Now she was trying to poison his reputation. He sent one final message to the group chat. "Emily and I are over. That is final. She ghosted me for 6 weeks, blocked me, and only came back when it was convenient for her. Now she's harassing my friends and my coworkers. I'm done. If she messages any of you, ignore her." Most of his friends understood. Some had already blocked her. But Emily wasn't done. The next day, his boss called him into the office. "Jake, do you have any idea why your ex-fiancée sent an email to HR?" Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "What?" "She claimed you have anger issues and that she was concerned for your coworkers' safety." Jake couldn't believe it. She wasn't just harassing his friends anymore, she was trying to ruin his career. His boss didn't take it seriously, of course. Jake had worked at the company for years. Everyone knew him. No one believed Emily's insane accusations. But it didn't matter. She had made her intentions clear. If she couldn't have him, she would destroy him. Jake had been patient. He had been calm. He had taken the high road. Not anymore. He went straight back to the courthouse. This time, he wasn't just asking for a restraining order, he was pressing charges. Harassment. Defamation. Violation of the protective order. Emily had finally pushed too far. The police took it seriously. With the restraining order already in place, and with proof that she had been messaging his friends and contacting his workplace, there was more than enough evidence to take action. Emily was arrested the next morning. Jake didn't go to the hearing. He didn't care. He didn't want to hear her excuses, her fake tears, her never-ending stream of manipulations. But later, when he found out that she had been given probation, a fine, and mandatory therapy, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Closure. It was finally, truly over. Emily was gone. And Jake? Jake walked away from it all, stronger, smarter, wiser. Because now he knew the truth. Some people don't deserve second chances.